What's up, everybody? This is the arshansamimian show, calling in from the city area, from school. So, um, if you guys remember, I made a video about BJJ, and basically, yeah, in some ways or another, I might have been crapping on it a little bit, but at the end of the day, I did learn. I got some comments that I disagreed with a little bit, and that's the part of the game in martial arts. You kind of got to disagree with certain people, so what I did is I decided to actually, one thing I want to do is get more into MMA and transition into that from Muay Thai and striking, because I personally am a shorter guy. I have a much shorter reach. So it only makes sense for me to have to use grappling skills to get ahead, right? So I joined this one place, and I have been looking to join a place for a while, but I haven't always been able to do it because of money issues, time management, school. But, I found one place that's really, really close to my home that I can go over near the weekends. And one place they have there is BJJ. So you can imagine I was not 100% hype, because from what I heard is that a lot of the people that do BJJ get their asses beat within a week or two of doing it. So what I did is I actually ended up starting it. And let's just say I got humbled real quick. There were like a great amount of times that I was caught in mount positions, in different side to side positions, leg locks, arm bars. Is definitely a very, very tough art to train in. And some of the main things that I would say that I'd taken away from it is, number one, you got to get the right cardio. So in Muay Thai and boxing and kickboxing, the thing about it is that it definitely works your cardio, and you can become an absolute badass doing it. Where you're hitting the pad, you work your shoulder conditioning, honestly, arguably more than any other art. Like hitting the pads and just doing several back-to-back rounds with burnout rounds, doing jabs on and off, or even doing burnout kicks at the end of a Muay Thai session on the pads. Like, it's excruciating pain, especially when you're just starting out. But, you get used to it. But in my opinion, arguably, the cardio that you get from grappling is just so much harder. Like, I gotta say, I definitely misjudged it. Because when I used to watch, I only started out just by watching BJJ clips. I could understand why wrestling's a little exhausting. But when I was watching Jiu-Jitsu, it kind of just looked like people laying down on the ground. No hate to Jiu-Jitsu people. I'm sure all of y'all could really beat my butt. But from what I learned is that it is a lot harder than it looks. It's very, very, very exhausting. And it takes a lot of time to get good at. So I definitely got caught in a lot of leg locks. But another thing that I learned is that the tradition there is really good. BJJ is very similar to Muay Thai in the sense that it has kind of like a brother-like atmosphere. I don't know as much about wrestling, so I can't hate on it. But from what I've seen and what I've heard from personal experience is that wrestling doesn't have really that kind of that brotherhood atmosphere. From what I've seen, at least, it might be a lot more like that. But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's a big element of it is just respect and learning to tap really early. And it's just a very humbling sport. Like in Muay Thai, boxing, to a degree, you can kind of get away with having a bit of an ego because you can't escape. The other guy isn't going as hard. But in Jiu-Jitsu, it's not like a boxing match where you don't know how hard the other guy is going and you can move around, kind of play it off cool if you get jabbed or beat up here and there. But in Jiu-Jitsu, it's kind of all out. It's really an all or nothing thing in the sense that you're either getting submitted or you're not. You're trying to end the round as quick as possible by submitting the other person. And I gotta say, I got humbled very, very fast because I'd say I'm more on the athletic side. I have quick speed, agility. But when you're going up against somebody who has the technique and has been literally training in the art for several years, especially if they have a background in possibly wrestling, judo, it just makes it that much harder to get an advantage. So I'd definitely say respect is a big element in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and just ego. You can't really have an ego in Jiu-Jitsu because if you try, you get absolutely cooked. There's no way out of somebody putting you in an absolute devastating submission where there's no way out and you're only like a week into grappling and you don't really know what to do. So I definitely say cardio, respect, and ego are big factors that you got to take into account with this. I'd say arguably a lot more than um, other martial arts. And another thing that really just struck me about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that's very, very complex. It's not very simple like Muay Thai and boxing. I understand that those striking arts, like when you're kicking the pads, Muay Thai, boxing, they can be very complex. There's a lot to it, and it takes decades of hard work and refinement to get really good at it. And I'm only like a few years into my Muay Thai journey. I've never fought or actually competed. I've only trained. But what I've seen is that BJJ is a lot more complex and it takes a lot more time, effort, and willpower to actually get good at it. And if you're not willing to do it and put in those hours, it's definitely not going to be very good. But in Muay Thai, it's definitely a lot easier and faster that you can actually get better at it because it's simpler. It's still very, very hard, but to a degree, it's simpler. I know a guy who'd spent like 2 to 3 months training Muay Thai, and he instantly, like, he already had a fight like before me. I wasn't as good, but he was already kicking my butt, who had been training in Taekwondo since I had a kid and had arguably more striking experience than him. So I definitely say that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu requires a lot more time allocation. It's a lot more complex, and there's just so much more to it. It's one of those things where any small move can completely screw you up. It's like a math algorithm. I remember I was there training, and we were getting some instructional advice, and it's like there was like, I don't know how easy it was for other people, but at least for somebody starting out in the grappling game, it was definitely very complex for me because there was at least like 30 different steps in my mind that I was playing out about how do I submit somebody, how do I escape the submission, how do I actually throw somebody off if they're in a mount, how do I get chest to back, how do I keep chest to back, how do I like accurately do a single leg and a double leg takedown. So it's definitely a lot more complex, and there's a lot more to it compared to Muay Thai, where it's just like 1-2, parry, rear kick, which is still really hard. And so I definitely say complexity, ego, respect are definitely really big things that come into it. I would say those are the main things. Some other things I learned is that it's just really beneficial based on your own physique, your own height, and your own personal physical capabilities. So again, based on what I said, I'm a much shorter guy and I don't have that crazy reach advantage. So what I've been learning is that closing the distance is really good for me. Even though I think a part of me is always going to love striking more just because it's always been more of my base and something I've always been doing. And I've always been fascinated with guys like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and just trying to emulate these guys in my sparring matches to a degree. So yeah, I do use a little bit of unconventional movements in my sparring. I would say that there is always an element of combat that everybody has to know. And for me, it just so happened to be that I had to get really, really good at conditioning and closing the distance, which requires a lot of good ground game. And what I've experienced from getting in sparring matches with really taller dudes with much longer reaches is that closing the distance on its own can be hard. And even if you manage to successfully close the distance and get some boxing in, or actually get in there and try to clinch, a lot of these guys are still really good at doing inside fighting. Like I would sometimes get inside and they would clinch me, and within seconds they would easily sweep me and throw me over. So definitely it is not as easy as it seems, which is honestly, in my opinion, why it is crucial to learn grappling. Because say they don't, even if they are really good at inside fighting and you manage to do a quick takedown, that can secure the match that much faster, which is really good. So I definitely say it's something that is very important to use, especially based on your own physical capabilities and your own body shape, size, physique, and whatever you think that you can do based on it. So I definitely say it's a really good art in terms of that. And yeah, I would say these are the main things I learned. I would say now what I'm going to go into really just the advantages, disadvantages, what I like, what I didn't like as much so far. I'm still really new into it, so there's a lot more I have to experience and see. If I want to try competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu one day in the future, maybe, maybe not. What I like is that Jiu-Jitsu is just a great form of cross-training overall. And it works your cardio and stamina in a way that you really couldn't experience from any other martial art or even sport. Like when you have a dude who, especially if they weigh that much more than you, and they're practically sitting on top of you, and you literally have no other way to get out of their grip, and there's like an 8 minute round, and all they're doing is just trying to submit you, and you're spending the whole round just trying to escape their submission. It can get absolute. It's very brutal, and it is very, very humbling. And something I really do like about jiu-jitsu, I'd say something I don't like, is there's not as much, in my opinion, from what I've seen, maybe just because I'm a newbie, but just in general, from trying different places, doing a couple classes here and there, I wish that there would be a lot more takedown work. But again, jiu-jitsu, from what I've learned, at least, I have a lot more to learn, but from what I'm seeing, it's a lot more groundwork, ground submissions, a lot more of that. But yeah, I definitely, a big part of something I'm very interested in is learning how to do body slams and stuff. And I know for sure that's not something that is necessarily allowed in the jiu-jitsu world. So I definitely want to learn a little bit about that. So I might have to find somewhere where I can get some wrestling experience in. Because I'd say I find takedowns, grabbing someone, boom, taking them down, a lot more fascinating. But as always, submission is a very necessary element of combat. So jiu-jitsu definitely helps with that. And something I do like, again, as I just said, is the fact that jiu-jitsu is very, very, there's a wide range of things you can use. You can use a kimura, an Americana. I don't even know the names. You can use an arm bar, right? You can do a leg triangle. It's like there's so many things you can maneuver into. Like in Muay Thai, if something doesn't work, sure, it could lead up into another combo. You throw like a jab, jab, cross. You can feint. You can kick low, kick high. But in jiu-jitsu, it's like you can literally switch from one thing to another. Like I remember when I was trying to do grappling rounds with these really much better and efficient dudes, they were going easy on me. But the second I even managed to slightly escape one of their submission holds, instantly they'd put me into another. They'd find a way to sweep my leg, to grab my leg, to pull me right into them, to trip me over, to get me in a quick chest to back position. So I definitely like how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu provides so many alternatives. So if one thing goes wrong, you can instantly submit somebody in another way. And just from what we've seen on the internet and real life, Jiu-Jitsu proves to be really, really beneficial in self-defense situations. Sure, I have previously argued that Jiu-Jitsu, the problem with it is that if you were to fight somebody and they went to the ground, you know, what would happen if another guy showed up from the side and he started kicking you in the side of the head? But definitely jiu-jitsu, I think it's a really good self-defense art to train. Might not be super fun doing it on cement ground, but especially if you're going up against a guy that doesn't know what he's doing, it can prove that much more beneficial. Because there have been certain cases in the news where somebody would use it to, you know, disarm someone to defend themselves. So it's definitely devastating. I would never in my life mess with a jiu-jitsu dude, let alone anyone. I'd say something that you might not get as much from jiu-jitsu is a crazy amount of shoulder conditioning. So if you were in an MMA fight and you prioritize, you know, jiu-jitsu a lot more than, you know, solid pad work and stand-up fighting and bag work, the shoulder conditioning might not carry over as much, but I'd say overall it's still really great just in general for explosiveness. And I think that all the skills that you can use in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu can very quickly and easily carry over to, you know, other martial arts that you want to train with. Ever since I've been doing Jiu-Jitsu, which is like 2 to 3 weeks or something, 3 weeks almost maybe, I don't know, less, more. I've seen a lot of increase in conditioning in Muay Thai. It carries over in the sense that I haven't even been running. I haven't run in a long time. I haven't done any sprints, any long distance runs. And I'm seeing that much more growth in my cardio capabilities, my ability to grab somebody into a single leg and take them down. It takes me a lot longer to gas out when I'm hitting the pads, when I'm hitting the bag. Don't get me wrong. Maybe it's just because my cardio is increasing overall just from doing a martial art and just from working out in general. but I'd arguably say the jiu-jitsu is definitely doing the trick. Even when I'm lifting weights, like when I'm hitting the bench press, when I'm doing shoulder presses, deadlifts, I don't know if it's just the grit or whatever it is. I'm definitely feeling a lot tougher on my lifts. I'd say my grip strength definitely feels a lot stronger when I've been deadlifting recently because I've been on a cut. So I would definitely say that grip strength, maybe that's in my head, but I feel like that's definitely an important element. And yeah, I'd say these are the main things, the main takeaways, lessons I have. If I had any advice for somebody who is literally just going to start out, I'm only 3 weeks ahead of somebody who's just trying to start out right now. So no pro here, but what I would say is try to keep your hands closer to your face and don't try to go for the win. Because especially if you're going up against somebody that is better than you, or even if they're not, if you're a newbie and likely if you aren't very proficient at submissions, what I would say is just try to survive the rounds and just try to learn from the other person, learn from what the coach says, and don't focus as much on just trying to get a quick choke in, because I can guarantee you, at least your first, second weeks, a big majority of your training isn't going to be as much, how do I submit and choke out this guy and, win the match? It's more, how do I actually survive a 300-pound dude sitting on top of me, trying to do a Kimura choke or an arm bar or a leg triangle. So I definitely say that's my biggest piece of advice for just complete newbies who are just getting into it, like me. Another thing I would say is just be prepared. It's not as easy as it seems. Maybe if you watch clips, it seems like just two people laying on the ground hugging each other, but it's tough. And another tip that I learned from a guy is breathe. If you don't breathe, you're going to wear yourself out quickly. And typically when we're in sports, we're not as experienced. If we're completely new to lifting, if we're completely new in Muay Thai, breathing is something that you definitely might struggle with at the beginning. But if you are doing jiu-jitsu and you are finding that you're taking deep breaths, so you're holding your breath in, chances are you're working a lot harder than you actually need to. And a big part of jiu-jitsu isn't who's the more muscular guy, who's the stronger guy, even though it's always important to have a degree of strength. A big part of it is just how long have you been training, how much have you been focusing on the technique, and are you actually proficient in submitting somebody or quickly maneuvering into different submission positions. So breathing, another tip I would have that I learned is when you are trying to do a takedown, do not keep your head completely down, or never create a bunch of distance between you and your opponent when you are trying to do a takedown. So I was training with a buddy, and what he did is he did a takedown maneuver with me where he wanted to see what I knew. And what I try to do is I try to do a single leg takedown, but he instantly put me in a guillotine. And it's because I kept a lot of distance between my head and his body. And he told me that if you want to get good at actually securing a single leg or a double leg takedown, first thing is you don't want to just attack them from the front, because there's kind of a red area that you have to kind of picture in your mind, where if you simply try to attack them from there and do a takedown, they can easily create distance, put you in a maneuver. So definitely try to attack from the slide your legs on the ground, dig your head into the opponent's body, and quickly try to actually drive your head into their body from the side. And then another element that I learned is distance. Distance is something that I was told is absolutely crucial. So if you were in an MMA match, or if you were in a self-defense scenario, something great that you could implement is distance. So if you're fighting a really, really big guy, and you know if he gets his hands on you, he's easily going to submit you or put you in a chokehold position, regardless if it's just his strength or degree of skill, you have to be able to create some sort of distance between you and him. And in a sense, I learned that something that does carry over from jiu-jitsu into Muay Thai, or from Muay Thai into jiu-jitsu, is a little bit of the stand-up grappling before you get taken to the ground, as well as the feints and footwork. Something I've been noticing is that in a couple grappling rounds I've tried, especially the club at the place that I go to, is I've been trying to implement a little bit of footwork feints, or kind of feint up here and act like I'm going to move in and then take a step back. And kind of you learning how to maneuver and actually work your opponent's hands and not letting him grab wrist control or hand control. So I'd say overall, just based on everything that I've talked about, what my final takeaways after doing jiu-jitsu for a few weeks, something that I'm still going to continue for the rest of my life because I want to, is it's a lot harder than Muay Thai or striking. Not in the sense that it's better. I think all martial arts are good in their own way, but that it's very exhausting and you have to be prepared for the cardio. Don't go in there with an ego. And when you start, don't try to be the guy that tries to submit people, but actually take your time with it. Try to be somebody who focuses less on how do I submit the other person, but how do I not get submitted. And finally, if I were to talk about the main differences that I've examined personally from striking to martial arts, is that there is a degree of carryover in the sense that Muay Thai provides a shoulder conditioning. Muay Thai can provide you with certain aspects of stand-up grappling before you actually take it to the ground. Not very much. And Muay Thai and striking can teach you a little bit about doing feints when you are trying to take the other guy down. But overall, yeah, I would definitely say that there are many things I was wrong about when I talked about jiu-jitsu in one of my previous videos. And overall, these are the main things that I learned about. So thanks again. If you like this, feel free to, drop a sub, follow, like, send this over to all of your other buddies. And once again, this is another video today of the arshansamimian show where we delved into combat, specifically jiu-jitsu, its differences between striking, and why I think that it's actually a very beneficial martial art today after a couple weeks training into it. And once again, I do wish you all a great day, and of course, stay blessed.